will go nowhere, because that is something he is quoted as saying earlier in his political career. He was quoted as saying, I could, literally shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and my supporters would go nowhere, or my supporters would remain with me. But does anybody believe that is actually true? Does anybody believe that if we can talk about some of the wild things that Trump has done that folks may want to criticize, but do you believe that he actually could pull the trigger and wound or take somebody's life in the middle of Fifth Avenue, as he stated, and his supporters will still ride with him? Is there anybody that believes that he's actually correct about that? He could literally shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and his supporters. I mean, is that just him talking, or do you believe he could actually do that? Because that's a hell of an amount of power to have. Well, he has Alex Preddy. What do you mean there, Mr. Johnny? Trump didn't take the life of Alex Preddy, so I don't get what you mean by that. Maybe if the story was twisted enough. So what are you saying? He could indeed shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue, and if you could twist the story enough, they may overlook it. Wow. Yes, he has literally been held liable for sexual assault in civil court, and they still ride with him, says Wicked Wembley. Well, they don't believe her. They don't believe any of the women claiming that Trump victimized them. The simple part is, we don't favor a president, or we would never side with a president that abused a woman. But in this case, we believe the woman is lying. They don't believe the woman. So that's the difference on that. Miss Mo Better, no one does it better. See if we can bring her up on Instagram. So they don't believe the women that are accusing Trump. Yeah, thank you, Debo, for the hat mustache. Appreciate the support of the program. They don't believe the women. So the folks that are criticizing Trump, in fact, I don't know if there's anyone ever that has criticized Trump of doing anything wrong whatsoever that MAGA has believed. I don't, what is it? No weapon formed against me shall prosper. I do believe it is something like that. No weapon formed against President Trump shall prosper. So if you accuse Trump of anything, financial, we can talk about Alvin, what was his name, Bragg or whatever, the guy who prosecuted him in New York, the one who ended up getting the felonies against Trump. They don't believe that guy either. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Because when you look at the claims of the 2020 election, Trump says he won that election and it was stolen from him. There's virtually no Republicans in power that agree with him. How many Republican senators can you name that says Trump won the 2020 election? Republican Congress. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene may have been one in Bobart, and Matt Gaetz, I think, at the time. But for the most part, most Republican congressmen and women were not saying he won. I don't know any senator that was saying it, any Republican governors that were saying it. We're talking Republicans. We're not even talking about liberals. Hell, we're not even talking about independents. They all believed he lost. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Folks believe Trump. Take that whole group, all of those Republican senators, all of those Republican congressmen and governors, most of his administration, even his own first administration, the Attorney General Barrs and who else are we talking about? Scaramucci's, Omarosa's. I don't believe that even Ben Carson, who's still favorable to Trump, claimed he won the 2020 election. So you can throw all of those national Republicans in a pile, not saying Trump won or even coming out flat out and saying he lost the 2020 election, in addition to his own vice president, Mike Pence, all of them. Trump said he won. This whole group says he lost. Folks believe Trump. They believe the one guy. No weapon formed against him shall prosper. So I do believe there is some of that in it, is that if he says something, no one can tell MAGA anything different. I think he has that kind of power. If he says it, that's one of the reasons why I've said even with the Epstein stuff, that it does not matter what comes out of the Epstein files. It's not going to hurt Trump in the eyes of MAGA. Because if Trump is saying, I did not do that, anyone telling you he did is going to fall on deaf ears. Who's going to tell you Trump did something wrong? Justice Department, FBI, maybe the intelligence agencies. Trump can easily convince folks that none of those folks are legitimate. Maybe this guy is he's part of the radical left now, or, the deep state bought him out, or he's a rhino. None of them folks, the people who, and this is why I often say, and I've asked my beloved MAGA this question, not saying Trump did anything wrong, not saying he committed any felonies, but the question I often ask is, let's just pretend for fictional purposes that Trump committed a serious felony. I ask this question all the time. Who could tell you and you would actually believe him? Talking to MAGA, who could tell you that Trump committed a serious felony? If he is denying it happened, who could tell you and you would actually believe them? Because if he's saying he didn't do it, my guess is he could convince he could convince you against anybody that was saying otherwise. So it does put him in a very good place. when he says middle of Fifth Avenue, that's kind of where that is. I mean, like, no matter what comes out of the Epstein files, the FBI agent that interviewed this girl was obviously had it in for me, or the judge had it. I mean, if you're going to believe him, then any of the information coming out against him, he's going to be able to discredit that. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. That's why most of the judges that have ruled against Trump has been able, at least in the eyes of MAGA, to discredit the judges. They're either radical left activist judges or they're rhinos. And most of the party, most of MAGA accepts that. So no weapon formed against him shall prosper. So I do believe he has that shield around him, at least in the eyes of MAGA, that no matter what he does, he's not, like I said, who could tell MAGA that Trump did something wrong and they would actually believe it? Who? Marjorie Taylor Greene was probably as MAGA as they come before she started pushing for justice in the Epstein case. Now look where she's at. Discredited her like that. You think he couldn't do that to Vance or Rubio? Who out there, if Trump wanted to turn them into the enemy, who out there in existence in the eyes of MAGA that Trump could not do that to? There's no one. So anybody that tells you something negative about Trump, like that, they become a rhino or an activist or some kind of, liberal plant or something like that. He could turn any of them into that. So, like I said, I don't see anything ever coming out of the Epstein files that would hurt him anyway. He would just demonize the source of it, and that would be the end of it. Looking in the comments, though, they are so devoted to Trump that they would believe it, even if Trump himself said he did it. They would say he's joking. Yeah, the deep state got to him. I do agree with that. Host is making a point, says, thank you, appreciate that. Occasionally, not often, but occasionally I get a little positive feedback. Most of my audience usually tears into me as being the internet's biggest idiot, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Trump has done a lot wrong, like not prosecuting Clinton and Obama. Okay. All right. Well, he did indicate that he was going to lock Hillary Clinton up in all of them, and he didn't do that, but go with that. There in the comments here, it's a cult, says Wicked Wembley. You think Trump supporters are in a cult? That's really, really strong language. Give me one reason we would believe the United States government after everything we have seen, says the handsome conservative. Well, you do realize, and that's a common sentiment what you're asking, but you do realize when you're discrediting the U.S. government and pointing out how untrustworthy the U.S. government is, that Trump is part of the U.S. government, correct? He is the head of the U.S. government. So you can't talk about how untrustworthy the U.S. government is while favoring what comes from Trump. He is literally the head of the government you're criticizing. He's part of that, and he's been part of it now for some years. I mean, he served a full term, and now he's about 30%, almost 30% through his second term. Not to mention, he was deeply involved in politics throughout Biden's term. So he is the government you're criticizing. Unless we want to just give, as I mentioned before, do we just want to give Trump a pass on things we would criticize others for? Because I do want to hear why Charlie Kirk's criticism was so wrong, and it's okay for Trump to say what he said at the death of Mueller. I do want somebody to come up, or better in the comments or whatever, because we're having trouble with the live, but I do want somebody to explain and make that make sense. You can't comprehend Trump being a train wreck, says Daniel. Well, is he a train wreck when he got millions of followers? I mean, Trump is probably the most loved president by his followers in American history. Yeah, probably more people have loved previous presidents. The support for Obama was pretty strong. The support for Reagan was undeniably bigger than it is for Trump. But the devotion towards Trump is unrivaled. I mean, I got folks on the internet suggesting that they would take a bullet for Trump. I didn't hear nobody saying that about Reagan or Obama. So the devotion to Trump is probably unmatched, unrivaled. So he is by far the most adored president by his supporters of anyone we've ever heard. We love you, Tim. Say, oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Sounds better than the opposite. I appreciate that. They are. Oh, I saw that. I want to make sure I didn't miss any comments. And tap the screen. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, because I had to reset it, we went from hundreds to dozens. So smash that like button. Help out the algorithm. See if we can get the program going. I had a call come in that I absolutely had to take, so I interrupted the live. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm asking you to smash that like button to get the folks back. Disliking Trump does not make me a Democrat. That is true, Spaz. However, it's worked well for the Trump administration to play the opposite. Anybody that criticizes Trump is suddenly a rhino. You're no longer a verifiable or a what I want to say, an authentic Republican. You're just a Republican in name only. That does happen. What does he call it? Marjorie Taylor Greene, Marjorie Trader Brown. How has Marjorie Taylor Greene been a traitor to Republican Party or the MAGA movement? What has she done? Her record is impeccably conservative. Ain't nothing about that woman a liberal. She's not even an independent. How is she a rhino in any sort of the word? Her record, she's probably more conservative than Trump. How is she viewed as a rhino? But MAGA had no problem sitting her on the outside like Dino at the beginning of the Flintstones for some of you Gen Xers. My grandfather would never be in the Republican Party, and he was a Republican. This new Republican Party, he would have problems with this. Well, I think it's probably because the new Republican Party is mislabeled. It should be the MAGA Party. It should be the MAGA Party. That name should change. It is not your grandfather's Republican Party. There's that call again. Hang on a second. I got to take this. Yo, hello? Okay, see you soon. Bye. I will wrap this up in a minute, but I had to take that call. But yeah, the party should be referred to as it should be referred to as the MAGA Party. It's damn, what happened here? It's no longer the Trump Party. There we go. I'm having trouble with I had a call come in. Secret call, says Chris. No, it wasn't a secret call. It's a mechanic. But I had to take it because I got a vehicle up there that's being serviced on a Sunday. So no, somebody said, was that Gangsta Grandma? Now that's funny. No, it wasn't Gangsta Grandma. Gangsta Grandma comes on the program. I would talk to Gangsta Grandma's good people. She don't like shit that I argue about, but Gangsta Grandma's good people. It's scary that so many people adore Trump. He has been the most problematic president, in my opinion, says Sugar Boom Boom. Well, let's just say it like this. If Trump succeeds in the manner he portrays, he could be one of the best presidents we've ever had. Now, he says a lot of things that oftentimes do not culminate into reality. But if the stuff he was saying actually came true, the tariffs are going to bring us trillions of dollars and bring all kinds of manufacturing back to America. If the stuff he was saying actually came true, yeah, he could be an awesome president. I mean, he still has a little bit less than 3 years to be our commander in chief. So we'll see how it pans out. But he does say a lot of things that do not end up, culminating into reality. But if they did, yeah, he could be one of the best ever. He could be. Trump says she's a traitor. Yeah, he says Marjorie Taylor Greene is a traitor, and I don't know what that's based on. No answer about Trump's tweet. And you're probably not going to get one. But for folks who are indeed wondering, we played this earlier, but I'm still astonished that even Trump, and he's known for saying controversial shit, but I'm astonished that even Trump would have done what he did yesterday. And I don't know why my audio is out.
Robert Mueller, the former FBI director, died last night at the age of 81. He served in that role for 12 years, making him the second longest serving director in FBI history. More recently, he was known for leading the Trump-Russia probe into the 2016 election. This afternoon, President Trump posted this on social media about Mueller, saying, quote, "Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people." Virginia Senator Mark Warner said that he's disappointed by what the president is saying.
And I don't want to go into his comments, but the idea you said Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent. Who the hell did Mueller hurt that's innocent? He said he could no longer hurt innocent people. He found Trump to damn near be innocent. He stated that if he had enough to convict Trump, he would have. If he had enough to exonerate Trump, he would have. He didn't convict Trump. He didn't pursue charges, rather, against Trump. So when he says Robert Mueller just died, good, I'm glad he's died. He can no longer hurt innocent people. Who did Robert Mueller hurt? Who is he even referring to? I mean, to me, it almost sounds as though Trump defamed his character in death. Who did Robert Mueller hurt to lead President Trump to say he can no longer hurt innocent people? Somebody let me know in the comments. Who did Robert Mueller even hurt? In the comments here, I live in the same town as Marjorie Taylor Greene. I knew she would end up leaving Congress regardless of Epstein files. She wanted a position either in Trump's cabinet or as a senator. Trump wouldn't back her. Yeah, well, I'm not aware that she was going to leave, but I can't argue with you. I'll plead ignorance on it, but I will say that she wasn't going to leave as soon as she left. She was not going to leave before the term. Marjorie Taylor Greene, when you say you knew she was going to leave because she wanted a position in Trump's cabinet, considering how much love she had from the MAGA movement and the Republican Party, I have a hard time believing she was going to leave based on what you're saying. I have a hard time because she was rolling. She had the full adoration of Trump, support of Trump and MAGA. Okay, she didn't get a cabinet position, but there's a million directions she could go. If you got that type of love from Trump and the MAGA movement, you got a job at Newsmax, OAN, or Fox anytime you want it. And you got all sorts of other jobs in the circle that are extremely lucrative. I don't think she would have just bowed out like that. No, there's more to it. I think the Epstein stuff probably has more play on why Marjorie Taylor Greene stepped down than you're giving her credit for, because she was still in a golden position. There's a lot of other things she could have done as opposed to just being on Trump's cabinet. By the way, that position only lasted 4 years. She could be there's all types of commentators and things like that, positions she could do that would have lasted indefinitely. And everything from running your own radio program on out. E-commerce guy, you said that Robert Mueller lied about the president and tried to get him arrested. How did Mueller try to get Trump arrested? He was the one that would have came back and deemed Trump worthy of arrest. Mueller did not try to get Trump arrested. You got to explain how that happened. And certainly I would like to hear the lie he told on President Trump. What lie did he tell on President Trump? Because look, you guys think the 2020 election was a lie. So I do have to ask you from that aspect, because you guys, a lot of folks that support Trump tend to think some truths, plural, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, truth, plural, some truths you guys believe are lies, and it's solely based on Trump telling you it's a lie. The 2020 election probably is the biggest example. So I'd have to know what lie you're saying. You said it was a lie. We know exactly what happened. Okay, I don't know what you're referring to. Iran nuclear enrichment has been obliterated, but let's go to war. Yeah, that wasn't accurate either. That was absolutely not accurate. To me, some of the biggest things Trump has said recently that are clearly dishonest, probably suggesting that Iran bombed their own school full of girls and that Iran likely had Tomahawk missiles. I think those two recent will come lies, anything less than the truth, whatever, those were obvious. Those were pretty obvious. I don't think anyone for a second, even folks who absolutely support the war in Iran, people on the right, I don't even think people on the right believe that Iran had bombed their own school. That was one that folks knew was not true when he was saying it. While he was saying it, they knew it was not true. So he has said some things that are obviously false, and you don't need to do a lot of research or fact check. For instance, some of his quotes about the average price of gas before the war were obviously not true. I mean, he had went down into the $1.90 something realm. Very few Americans believe that the average price of gas anywhere was $1.98 or something like that under his term. He was saying that at the State of the Union address, which is actually less than a month ago. At the State of the Union address, he said the average price of gas was $2.20. I think it'll be 4 weeks ago, this Tuesday coming up. The State of the Union would have been 4 weeks ago from this Tuesday coming up. Gas was not $2.20 a gallon on average anywhere in America. They were able to fact check and find that $2.37 was the average in the state of Oklahoma, which was the lowest state in the union. There was nowhere else in this country where gas was $2.20 a gallon. That's what he said during the State of the Union address, is that gas is currently $2.20 a gallon. Not only was he not correct about that, but because he went too far in the cheap realm, it makes what we're dealing with now look even worse. Because now it makes it look like the increase of gas has been greater than it actually has, because you're actually on record saying it was at $2.20, and now we're almost at $4. So it makes it look even worse now. So you went from $2.20, according to you, sir. We went from $2.20 to about where we're at now, about $3.80. So we're suggesting that the price of fuel in America has almost doubled in a span of a month. And by the way, this is the greatest increase in the price of fuel in this time frame in American history. Gas has never increased this quickly by this much in American history. So we can talk about under Biden and all of that, but this didn't happen under Biden. Gas prices did not jump this quick. You're talking 3 weeks, three weeks or so. It's jumped that much in only 3.5 weeks. That's impressive if you're trying to raise the price of fuel. So for folks who suggest that Iran is getting their ass kicked, go look at your bank account. Tell me how much you're winning. Tell me how much you're winning. So it looks great to see bombs dropping on Iran on your television. Maybe they should put those photos. You go and pump gas. They got, a lot of these gas stations now got the high-tech computer. They got the screen where you can actually watch video. They might be trying to tell you, go inside. We're selling Cokes for $1.29. They need to put those bombs exploding at the gas, so you got something to feel good about when you're paying that high rate for gas. Put that on there. This is why you're paying $4 a gallon. While your gas is pumping. Show you a few videos of Iranian tanks and shit being blown up or whatever. Iranian aircraft. Obama gas $5.69 for no reason. Where, Donnell? I don't recall I've never paid $5 a gallon for gas in my life under any president. You're saying gas was $5.69 under Obama for no reason. Where were you at? I don't know anywhere. People were paying $5.69. I think that's way too high. I suppose if you're in California and California has their own tax system that has something to do with that, or there's a few states, you get in the New England area, Pennsylvania, and the West Coast, California, Oregon, and Seattle, and Washington has really high gas prices, but that ain't got that is not necessarily something to do with the president. Some of that's to do with their own state legend. I mean, think about it. There's a reason why gas costs so much in California compared to most other states. That has nothing to do with President Trump. It's not like under President Trump, the gas prices in California dropped down to reasonable levels. No, because it's beyond the president. He said, yeah, because they're Democrats. All right, call it what you want. I mean, that is true, but I'll tell you it is. I don't recall hearing the Republicans or even the citizens in the state of California celebrating how cheap gas was under Governor Schwarzenegger. When the state was red, I don't recall hearing how cheap gas was. It was expensive then too. So the idea that California's gas is only, costing a fortune because it's a red state, or better yet, a blue state, that's not true. They've had Republican governors and the gas there was high under them too. So I don't think about it. Governor Schwarzenegger, how long has it been since he was governor? That hasn't been that long ago. I don't recall gas being super cheap in California under Schwarzenegger. So in the comments, Bill Rose, we have an issue with TikTok. They suspended the live for a day. So that's why you're not hearing guests. We don't have control over that. So my apologies. We would certainly like to. So what we're also discussing, in addition to him saying all this awful shit about Mueller, and why was it wrong for him to say it about Mueller? But why was it wrong for folks to say what they said about Charlie Kirk, but it's okay about Mueller? I want to hear an explanation for that, because I don't get that. Why is one acceptable and the other is not? But also
disappointed by what the president had to say.
Don't know why that started.
The president of the United States talking.
Don't know why that started, but I do want you to hear. We played this earlier, and I think it's worthy of playing again because my audience is kind of rotating. I don't, with the way this shit is going right now, it's not the same, but I mentioned this earlier.
Live now. I'm Austin Fall. We have been tracking the Middle East closely, and we were about to go to our overnight playlist, but we just got some breaking news in from President Trump. He just sent this out on Truth Social, saying if Iran doesn't fully open without threat the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. That's all it says. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
So he's threatening to blow up power plants in Iran if they don't open up the Strait of Hormuz. So he's going to escalate it. I mean, I guess the shock and awe so far, he said we won the war. He said that several times. He said the war was over within the first few hours. Then why is this necessary? So this goes right back into, he says a lot of things that don't culminate into reality. You've made it sound like we won this shit in a few hours. Why is this still going? If we won it so quick, why is the strait not already open? Why are they still fighting a war that they've lost? What is happening? But I do want to, what I want to point out in regards to this is the whole claim that if they don't open the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours, and this came yesterday, so I guess apparently tomorrow is when the 48-hour threat will have expired, and then he's going to start blowing up power plants in Iran, putting that country into total darkness. I'm bringing this up, and I know a lot of folks favor him doing this, but I'm bringing this up because were we not supposedly going to be going there to liberate the citizens? The ones that the protesters were being killed. You got folks on here talking about the 19-year-old wrestler that got executed for protesting. By the way, Iran is claiming that guy was fighting and I think tried to kill some cops or something like that. The release from Iran is that he did more than just protested. Now, you can go back and forth over whether you believe Iran or not, but remember what we said about Alex Preddy, how he was a domestic terrorist. So, I mean, but Iran is claiming that this guy did more than just protested. But anyway, he was executed a few days ago. They did take his life. He was hung. And the MAGA Saturday Owl, including the Trump administration, is indicating that we're there to liberate the Iranian citizens from an oppressive government. The Ayatollah's dead, and we're going to eliminate the oppression and hopefully help these people rise up and take their country back. The question I'm asking is, will they see us as liberators if we start bombing power plants and put them in total darkness? How long do they get to fix this? I mean, okay, so we blow up the power plants. The country's in darkness, so they can't refrigerate their meats in food. They can't heat or warm themselves depending on the climate. Anybody that's hospitalized that's on a machine is at risk of perishing because machines keep people alive in hospitals. We know that. They monitor things like blood pressure in your vitals. All of that goes down. If a hospital does not have power, people in the hospital probably are going to die. That's anywhere on the planet. So if we go and take out their power plant, and now they're thrust into darkness indefinitely, a la Cuba, because we've done it to Cuba right now. Do you think the citizens will view us as liberators? Does that sound like something people coming to liberate you will do? Put you in total darkness while bombs are falling from the air and we're, I mean, has what we've done so far come across as an act of liberation? Trump's on television saying that they bombed their own school. I mean, and by the way, I've been able to go on the darker side of the web and see the footage coming out of that Iranian school being bombed. There's something about seeing a little child missing like part of their face, covered in ash and rubble. I mean, the videos are out there. The videos are out there. I mean, I've seen some of that stuff, you know, limbs missing, and they're kind of taking the pieces of the kid to put them in a bag and they fold them up, and that's how they kind of put the body bags to the side. The video, it's out there. You can find it. I've seen it. I've seen it. Do you think they see that as liberation? You think they see that stuff as liberation? I see in the comments, diaper dentist says, tough shit. Time to get tough. Okay, you're getting tough, but you're not getting a liberation trophy. Call it what it is. I'm here to get tough. We're here to kill people. We're not here to liberate. I get what you're saying, but be honest about what you're doing. The liberation stuff is a crock of shit. I think everybody knows that. Not just the Iranians. I think people around the world probably know that. We're not there to do right by the Iranian people. We're there to do right by us. We're in Iran to benefit America in Israel. We're not in Iran to benefit anybody in Iran. We're just using that to play on the heartstrings of some folks who may think suddenly, well, they're here to do something worthwhile. No, we're here to, listen, if we take out their power plants, you think we're going to rebuild that shit? We're going to leave them in the dark. Once we're done, we're going to leave, and just like what happened in Gaza. You're going to destroy what you need to destroy and leave. So those citizens now are left with that to live in. We're not going to help them out. We're not going to do anything for them. We're going to give you bombs. We're not going to give you any type of aid, food, wheat, water. No. We're going to, all us Americans, we'll give you bombs. We have no problem finding money to give you bombs. All of that USAID and you need food. No, we don't do that anymore. We don't have a problem giving you bombs, though. We'll spend a fortune on your country in bombs. But in terms of the rubble, the cleanup, none of that. None of that. And I see in the comments, Bill Rose says, we rebuilt every country. I don't believe that's true. Did we really genuinely rebuild Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam? Did we rebuild those countries? I don't believe that's true. I do not believe we have rebuilt every country. No, he will take whatever money is available. Yeah. I don't. And I see the comments. Charles says that's a lie. Yeah, we don't rebuild. We rebuild if there's something that's going to come out of our rebuilding, like an occupation. if we have to stay there, like Japan, for instance, we help rebuild that, or Germany. Yeah, because we haven't left. We're still in Japan. We're still in Germany. If we're going to stay there, yeah, we'll rebuild it. We're not going to stay in Iran. We didn't stay in Iraq. I can tell you this, and I'm not military, and I would never claim to be so. Never been in Iraq. I bet you there's blown up shit still in Iraq. We haven't rebuilt it. I bet you there are blown up tanks, homes, structures, buildings. I bet you there's rubble all over that country still from what we did there. We ain't rebuilding that. We don't rebuild like that. I guarantee you there's shit laying all over the place that is still messed up over there. All types of infrastructure that has not been rebuilt that we destroyed. Probably unexploded ordnance is still in that country, all over the damn place. Same in Afghanistan. We don't rebuild that shit. Give you a few pennies, a little stipend, but I don't think we rebuild it. You don't know, you've never been over there, Seals Bureau. Okay, that's so in other words, because I've never been over there, that guarantees I'm wrong. I'm admitting I've never been over there, but I feel confident that we have not rebuilt all of the damage from quote unquote shock and awe. We didn't rebuild it. Have you heard about us spending a fortune in rebuilding over there? I haven't heard that. They literally have contractors they hire to rebuild. They hire. We sent a lot of money in. Some places in Iraq are very nice. But here's the thing. If a country like Iraq or Iran has a ton of resources like oil, if America is rebuilding your country, we're taking oil for the cost of it. We actually are not rebuilding your country. We'll pay up front, but you're going to pay out the back end. So in other words, the damage we've done in your country is going to ultimately be on you. I don't believe we rebuilt Iraq, and I don't believe we've rebuilt Afghanistan either. I don't believe we rebuilt those countries. Trump is asking Congress for $20 billion for the war. Is it 20? I thought it was 200. Is it 20? I think it's 200. I think it's 200 billion. And that doesn't sound like a war that's coming to an end soon. If you're asking for $200 billion, by the way, Trump is saying that we're about to start winding down. How can you be winding down when the amount of money you're asking is winding up? The logic of it doesn't make sense. Why do you need so much money if we're about to wind down? There's no way to do boxes, Bill, right now. Yes, Iraq still has numerous damaged and destroyed buildings resulting from various conflicts since 2003, including the initial Iraq War and the subsequent war against the Islamic State. Yeah, I don't believe America went around the country rebuilding all that shit. And I had a guest on the program talking about how much better Iraq is since we've been there. And I asked him, would you take your family to Iraq for a vacation in Baghdad? You feel confident enough to go and visit Iraq right now if it's doing that well? I don't see where Iraq is doing to some degree that much better than they were doing before Saddam Hussein was taken out. The only difference is they don't have that type of guy that is a tyrant on the world stage. For the most part, we don't have a leader in Iraq that is resisting our way, resisting our will. But is the current leadership in Iraq better for the people? Are the people in Iraq faring better now than they were under Saddam Hussein? I don't know. I haven't heard America bragging about that. I haven't heard Trump or anybody bragging about that. Why would we leave Iraq as a vacation spot of the world? They have oil. They can build that themselves. Well, the point I'm saying is these countries are not better once we leave. They're literally just picking up the pieces and moving on. That's why oftentimes when one bad guy is taken out, another bad guy comes back. Because we really didn't do anything to better the country. We just took out the bad guy we didn't like. That's all that really happened. Why would and looking in the comments here, whoa, there we just started 39 minutes ago. Yep. Well, like I said, I had to reset the live. So he's trying to replace all of that high speed price. Or he's trying to replace all of that high price munitions he just spent in the last 3 weeks. Well, I don't know if you really need to. I think the Iranians and the Ukrainians are showing you can do a lot of damage with cheap shit. It looks great to see, Trump giving credit to the bombers and the F-22s and all of them that's blowing up shit. But if you build enough of that cheap shit, you can still do a lot of damage. Look, this is where I'm going to admit speculation once again because I'm not over there. But I absolutely believe the Iranians are scoring more points than the referees are telling us about. I don't think they're winning. I'm not going to say anything stupid like that because America controls, and Israel controls the airspace and things like that. But I do believe they are scoring more points than we're being told. Just take Trump's words alone. Look at how positive what he is saying is versus his actions of what he's having to do. He's saying that we won the war in the first days or a few hours and all of this stuff. I've won, it's over. But he's constantly having to send more resources. A second group of Marines is going. What you're doing doesn't match what you're saying. It's as simple as that. You're making it sound like this was a cakewalk, but now we see what's being sent over there. We see how much money you're asking for more shit. That doesn't match what you're telling us. I mean, it's like you got two guys fighting and you're looking in and giving a play-by-play description. Well, he kicking dude's ass, but the fight's over with. Now here you're asking for more stuff. We need them to, send some help in there for him. I thought it was over. So what he is saying doesn't match what he is actually doing. And having said that, I do believe the Iranians are doing more damage than they're telling you. They're trying to paint a rosy picture of something that may have some grim output. For instance, I think a lot more Iranian drones and missiles are actually hitting their targets in Israel than they're telling you. Israel is taking casualties. I don't think they're being honest with you with the damage that Israel is. They're not shooting all that shit down. When you listen to the news in America, it sounds like, the Iron Dome, the Patriot batteries are just shooting everything Iran is sending down. I don't believe that. Because when you look at outside news agencies, they're showing buildings destroyed in Tel Aviv and places. They're hitting shit in Iran. I mean, in Israel. They actually are hitting stuff. They're just not telling you on because at the end of the day, America has grown war weary from what the Iraq war put us through and how long we were in Iraq. So Americans really do not have the stomach for another extended war at a high cost. So the Trump administration has to paint a picture that this will not be an extended war and the cost won't be that great. But you see what's coming out. You need $200 billion. So obviously the cost is getting high. And the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and every few days, well, it's almost done. We're getting close, but it doesn't actually ever culminate. It just keeps going on and on. So what he is saying versus what you see him requesting and what's being done do not measure up. You wouldn't send thousands of Marines to a war you've already won. That doesn't make sense. So yeah, what he's saying and what he's doing don't measure up. And that's probably why our allies were not so eager to jump into the war. By the way, another thing he said that doesn't measure up, the UK offered to send 2 aircraft carriers. He denied them, suggesting that we don't need aircraft carriers from a country that wants to join a war that's already won. But now you've seen him multiple times asking for other nations to step up and send ships. Why? Why would we send ships to something that's already over with? According to you, you've already won. It's over with. Why do you need us to send warships? What he's saying doesn't match what he's requesting. So I don't think they're being completely honest on this. We'll see how it turns out, but I tend to think that the Iranians are putting up more of a fight than we want to give them credit for. I think Trump went into this with a Venezuelan high. Venezuela was very easy. Sent in a few dozen Delta Force or whatever the hell they were. They took out Maduro. Party's over. I think he went into Iran with a Venezuelan high, thinking that Venezuela might not be too much more difficult than Iran, rather. Might not be too much more difficult than Venezuela was. And he's wrong. Very wrong. In the comments, this is why nuclear options are getting scarier by the day. Under Trump, normally I would not agree, but under Trump, I don't know. How many, by way of yes or no in the comments, how many of you folks think that Trump is capable of trying to use a nuke on Iran? Is there any of you who believe he might do? Jesus, can't believe I'm asking this. Yes or no? Would Trump use a nuke on Iran? Do you think he would ever get to that point? Jesus. A lot of folks are saying, yeah. Wow. And I see somebody say this for Israel. Yeah, I think if Iran started inflicting a high number of casualties to the point where it was embarrassing Trump, even if just at the tactical level, some of the smaller atomic weapons, I think he would be capable of using them. Yeah, I think he would be. And the problem is, because of how he governs, nobody could advise him otherwise. He doesn't always take the advice of folks who have been put in positions that are experts. You don't take the advice of experts, because obviously if you drop a nuclear bomb, you're contaminating the area. You could be contaminating the region, depending on what the winds do, for a long time. And my guess is a lot of advisors will tell him not to do it. I'm not confident he would listen. If he's getting embarrassed with high casualty rates and things like that, and the Iranians are trolling Americans if the Iranians are on the internet like they are trolling Americans, dragging dead Marines through the streets of Tehran somewhere, I'm not sure he would do it. They would have to override him. Isn't that what General Milley, whatever, General Milley, isn't that kind of what he promised the Chinese toward the end of Trump's first term? To not worry if Trump gave a rogue order, we wouldn't follow it. And then, of course, Trump wanted to prosecute him for doing that, wanted to prosecute Milley for doing that. But I don't think, you got Hegseth in place now. You think Hegseth is going to hesitate? I don't know. If Trump wants to bomb, it kind of reminds me of the old Land of Confusion video with Phil Collins. If any of you seen that, Gen Xers, where it's Ronald Reagan pushing the button. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure that Hegseth would resist the order, because I'm still wondering, did we kill innocent people off the coast of Venezuela in those alleged drug boats? I'm wondering, was all of that legitimate? Were all of those are legitimate casualties? The Trump administration has never shown us anything to legitimize what happened down there in Venezuela. You just have to take his word that those were drug boats. They were currently carrying drugs, and their destination was America. He didn't prove none of that stuff. I think there is some proof the boats were capable of being drug boats as opposed to fishing boats. Plenty of outboard motors, fast movers. But that doesn't mean they were currently carrying narcotics or that their current destination was America. There's been no proof of that. So you just kind of have to believe what he says. I grew up with a sibling like Trump. Think of the worst possible thing that you can. They will do at least that much harm, if not more, when they are back. So you do believe that Trump will do the worst possible thing that yikes. Yeah, well, hopefully you're wrong, but this is why we have to check their power. Well, they tried to interfere and tried to limit Trump's war powers, and the Republicans keep shooting that down. So they're not doing that. I suppose there's some hope in the midterms, but that's another thing we want to talk about too, is a Save America Act. That's something that we got to deal with, because the Democrats should do resoundingly well in the midterms. I don't think it's even going to be a question if the elections go as they normally go, at least according to most political analysts. However, President Trump has ulterior plans, and I think some of that comes by way of the Save America Act. So if Trump gets his way, he could be successful in the midterms. He actually could be successful in the midterms. And oftentimes his way is threats and fear. And when I'm saying that, I'm trying to bring up a clip that I think is exactly that.
Trump just posting this on Truth Social, quote, if the radical left Democrats don't immediately sign an agreement to let our country, in particular our airports, be free and safe again, I will move our brilliant and patriotic ICE agents to the airports where they will do security like no one has ever seen before, including the immediate arrest of all illegal immigrants who have come into our country, with heavy emphasis on those from Somalia who have totally destroyed, with the approval of a corrupt governor, attorney general, and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, the once great state of Minnesota. I look forward to seeing ICE in action at our airports. Make America great again. And that comes, as we know, ICE is fully funded for a few years. So he does have the power to do this. And I
I'm gonna I just wanted to play her say that because this is a Fox News clip. I'm not 100% he has the power to do that. I'm not 100% sure of that. I'm not 100% sure he can't do it. Fox News is going to speak favorably of Trump. That's just, it is what it is. So I don't know if he can do it or not. But this is what he is threatening to get the Save America Act passed. Now, many are suggesting, look, what's wrong with the Save America Act is just simply requiring an ID to vote. Well, first of all, the Save America Act is not just about voting. I mean, they got a lot of anti-trans shit in there and stuff like that too. So it's not just an act. It's not just some type of legislation trying to make the polls safer. It's anti-trans. There's other stuff in there. So that's the first thing. If it's really just about the election, why is this in there? Because the Democrats want that taken out. Why is this in there if you're claiming this is just to make the elections free of illegal immigrants voting? Why is all this trans shit in here? This sounds more like a right-wing hit list, a Christmas list for the Republicans. It sounds more like that than it does, something to make elections free and clear. The trans stuff, do that in separate legislation. Why is that in here? But the Save America Act, I do believe, has a really good chance of benefiting Trump in the midterms because it allows you to be able to play some tricks. Okay, first of all, the Save America Act requires you to be a citizen to register to vote. Most people agree with that, including yours truly. I don't want illegal immigrants voting. However, I do believe this is a solution chasing a non-existent problem. I don't believe we have a lot of illegal immigrants voting in elections at all. Just like with the Venezuelan boats, you just kind of got to believe what Trump is saying. He hasn't produced much proof at all of illegal immigrants voting in our elections. Have you seen anything? We can kind of bring up Lincoln Riley in regards to illegal immigrants hurting people. I mean, they don't even have one whipping boy to bring up in terms of somebody illegal that was caught trying to vote. There's like nobody. So this is absolutely a solution in pursuit of a problem. I don't believe this is happening. I gave the spiel before the live went down earlier of how we've had a fake ID problem in America all of our lives. People using fake IDs to buy alcohol, cigarettes, and things like that. Fake IDs to drive a car, fake IDs to get a job, fake social security card. You hear people getting caught using fake IDs all the time. You've been hearing that since you were younger than old enough to buy cigarettes and beer and things like that. You probably have friends, if you didn't use a fake ID back then yourself, to get alcohol or smokes or whatever. People get caught using fake IDs all the time. You don't hear anybody getting caught using a fake ID to vote. You got bouncers at bars catching people using fake IDs to get in. People using fake IDs get caught all the time. Nobody's getting caught using a fake ID to vote. That makes, if this was a problem, you would hear about people getting caught doing it. And you would have been hearing about people getting caught doing it for years. It's just not happening based on the actual facts presented. So, which is why I suggest that it is a solution in pursuit of a problem. Dude, are you taking? No, we're not able to take calls on what do you call it, on TikTok. They took the damn thing down, but we can try it out with Hang Time on Instagram. But you would need over 10,000 people to actually make a difference. Well, I just want to say this: it would be a lot more believable if they actually were showing you people that were getting caught trying to vote. You got sheriff deputies and oftentimes city police in many polling places. Nobody's getting caught doing this, but yet the 19-year-old working behind the counter at a gas station is catching people using fake IDs to buy cigarettes. She can catch people, but you got law enforcement at polling places all over America and nobody's getting caught at all. That don't make sense. That doesn't make sense. If this really was a problem, some people would be getting caught. Also, I submit this to you. I'm 100% okay with you. If you want to do this, I'm 100% okay with it, with one exception. Give people the IDs for free. Simple as that. Give people the IDs to vote for free. Just like you send out a letter when they turn 18 to join the selective service. You don't charge them money to send that letter out. I mean, it doesn't cost much money to take a piece of plastic and print whatever you get, their face, their name, a little bit of information. This stuff is cheaper if you're doing it in bulk. It's just a piece of plastic with a few, with a few words in a picture on it. That doesn't cost anything. Give it to the American citizens for free. If we can cover building bombs and all that, we can cover this. You're talking about probably a nickel or 10 cents per citizen. Give it to them for free. Because I'll tell you, if you get pulled over at a traffic stop and all you got on you is your driver's license, the cop can find out if you're a U.S. citizen within 10 minutes. It ain't hard to find out if a person is a U.S. citizen. So go down to the DMV, give them your driver's license, they punch it in the computer, and boom, they give you a plastic ID. You look in the camera, you take a picture or whatever, and it says confirmed voter or whatever. Give it to them for free. Be simple as that. If they really wanted to do this the right way, simple as that. I would even submit you can even do it easier than that. You could anybody that wants this, mail in a letter to the DMV. DMV is going to look you up by your driver's license or whatever the case may be, and then they'll mail out the ID to you. But the right has you thinking that there's just fraud in every aspect of voting. There's tons of people mailing in illegal votes too. But once again, the evidence is just not there. If there was a ton of people being arrested for using mail-in ballots illegally, I'm on their side. But most of the stuff they're claiming comes with little to no evidence at all. And you're talking to somebody who watched 2,000 Mules like 6 times. We've done a bunch of shows on 2,000 Mules. The way that whole thing was done was even skewed biased. I mean, what I don't like is this. The notion that there is fraud in our elections and it's 100% Democrats. In other words, yeah, people are cheating on elections, but Republicans are just all inherently honest. Democrats are the ones that cheat. That's where you lose me at. Because if there is a way to cheat on an election, people from both sides are going to do that. Have you ever heard Trump claim once that any Republican in this country has cheated? Have you ever heard him mention at all anything whatsoever about Republican cheating? So the belief is that only Democrats cheat. Millions of people, and only Democrats do it. The statistical probability of that is probably damn near zero. Republicans want their candidates to win too. If the Dominion voting machines, for instance, which is something the Trump administration targeted, if you can switch votes from one candidate to, you're going to tell me no Republican figured that out? Only Democrats did it all over the country. Democrats all over the place knew how to do this, and no Republican figured it out, or Republicans are just so honest, none of them decided to do it. That's not believable. So when you're even addressing fraud and pretending like only one side does it, in my opinion, that hurts your credibility of how you're addressing it. Because if you can cheat, people gonna be cheating from every damn where. It ain't gonna just be Democrats. That's insane. Yes, Democrats, because that's what they stand for. Yeah, interesting you would say that when you got so many Republicans that have pled guilty to cheating. Once again, Trump didn't bring them up either. The fake electors caught cheating. Those are Republicans. No mention from Trump at all about that. My opinion is this. It ain't that Republicans are incapable of cheating. I just tend to believe that Trump is okay with fraud as long as it works in his favor. If an election was fraudulent, but that state went to Trump, I don't think he'd care about it. And I'll give you two examples. One being North Carolina. Right up to the 2020 election, Joe Biden was winning in North Carolina. Now, that's a red state due to gerrymandering, I'm going to tell you, but it's a red state. And Joe Biden was winning up to the last few weeks in the polls in North Carolina. Trump was on television saying there was widespread fraud taking place in North Carolina. He ended up winning North Carolina. On election day, more people in North Carolina voted for Trump than Biden. He ended up winning North Carolina and getting their electoral college votes. Once he got the votes in North Carolina, he never talked about the fraud there again. So you're on record saying this state has a bunch of cheating taking place. Once you win a state, you don't care nothing about the fraud. So that means you may have not won that state. According to your own words, you may actually have not even won that state. But because you got their votes, you have never heard him say a thing about the voting process in North Carolina since the 2020 election. But right up to the vote, he was claiming there was fraud in that state. So as I stated, I tend to believe that it's not that he's seeking a fair election. He's seeking a win. If it's fraudulent, but it's in his favor, he's okay with that. Another example, state of Pennsylvania was sued by Texas because of their mail-in changes due to the pandemic. They claimed that Pennsylvania made changes that went against the Constitution, and they were therefore trying to use that to overturn the results in the state of Pennsylvania. When they were doing that, the governor of Montana appeared on This Week with George Stephanopoulos, one of the Sunday shows on ABC, and stated, "We made the exact same change to our state that they made in Pennsylvania, and the Trump administration is not suing us because they won here. But we did the same change to mail-in votes that Pennsylvania did, and they're not suing us." As I stated, the fraud is not the problem. We just don't want to lose while we believe fraud is happening. If it works in our favor, we're okay with it. So Montana and Pennsylvania make changes to their mail-in votes, citing the pandemic as the reason why. He only has a problem when he loses that state that made the changes. The state that made the same changes and won, he's okay with it. So that makes his credibility in regards to looking into these elections. In fact, it makes it lack credibility because you're not concerned. And we can go for it. We could even go further into it by simply pointing out all of his investigations were done in Democrat areas. You go to Georgia, you go to Atlanta. You go to Michigan, you go to Detroit. You go to Wisconsin, you go to Milwaukee. You go to Arizona, you go to... What's happening in the red parts of these states? If people could cheat in Atlanta, they could cheat in Savannah. If they could cheat in Detroit, they could cheat in Escanaba. They could cheat all over the state. You're only in areas where you lost. If they're doing the same shit in Republican areas, you don't care about that. So to me, it makes the credibility of what he's saying challenging at best, because you're only going to Democrat areas to do investigations. But the way they cheated would be available to people all over the state. Everybody could do this. If like you take 2,000 mules to ballot harvesting, you can do that anywhere. You don't have to just do that in Atlanta. You can do that anywhere in the state. He didn't go anywhere else, though. He was only focused on Fulton County. He's only focused on Atlanta. So you're not trying to stop cheating. You're just trying to win. That's to me where the credibility doesn't measure up. You need one to get a job, don't you? Can't fix stupid. Don't understand what you're saying. People who work or school outside their home state need mail-in. Like I said, I'm okay with making the election as safe as possible. What I'm not okay with, though, is making accusations based on no actual proof. I do not see any legitimate reason to indicate there's a bunch of illegal immigrants voting in elections. I just don't. Look, you don't did everything you can to get in this country illegally, stay under the radar and not get deported. Why the hell? You're just one fucking vote. You actually went down to a polling place. You don't let's say I'm in Guatemala, Nicaragua, somewhere where we struggling. And my brother don't found a way, or a cousin or somebody, you don't found a way to sneak into America. And compared to how we living down here, you living a good life. And then all of a sudden I see a bus drop your ass off back at home. You mean you got a chance to go to paradise and you got to, because you tried to cast a fucking vote? That would make me want to swing on you. You was helping out mom with checks and all kinds of shit. You lost all of that because you tried to cast one vote in a nation of 300 and some million people. How dumbass could you be? I don't believe that they're trying to do nothing like that. I don't believe that you would make it here. You're walking through Mexico on foot, paying off coyotes and shit. And you come here and you got deported for casting a vote? Are you fucking kidding me? That's not happening. I don't believe that's happening. The logistics of it doesn't make sense. You did all of that. You put all of that at risk so that you could cast one vote. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't. Now I can see if somebody hired somebody to do something that was going to affect a ton of votes. Maybe you went underground and worked as a Dominion electronics technician or some shit like that and that's different. But to cast one vote, really? No, that ain't happening. And when you look at the millions of illegals that are in this country and they can't even present one or two of them that's done it, that shit, you're not going to have millions, you're not going to have thousands or even millions of people doing something and nobody's getting caught in sync like that. It's not going to happen. So yeah, I absolutely believe that is the SAVE Act is addressing a problem. It's providing a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. I mean, it's like literally the fire truck shows up to your house and they're just spraying your whole house and soaking it, and you don't have a fire. Well, we just want to make sure nothing breaks out. You fucking flood my house out. Ain't nothing no fire here. I really think that's what this is. You can't register to vote if you are not an American citizen. Yeah, it's already against the law to vote if you're a citizen. It's already, if you're not a citizen, it's already against the law to do it. So yeah, I absolutely believe that this is a solution looking for a problem. And I think that's kind of how the whole 2020 election was, is that Trump wanted to win the 2020 election and he just threw against the wall a bunch of spaghetti to see which noodle stuck. Just, there's dead people voting, there's illegal immigrants voting, the Dominion voting machines are switching votes over. They're shutting down polling places, so they're cheating inside. I'm just going to give you every way they can cheat. And I want you to go out and find some of this shit to make what I'm saying valid so we can stop this. I'm going to tell you every way they can do it. I'm not going to provide you any evidence that any of this is happening. I'm just going to accuse them of everything they possibly could do to cheat. And then it's your job, Attorney General Barr or MAGA, go out and find this shit to legitimize what I'm saying so that way we can have a chance of overturning this. That's what the goal was. Why would undocumented immigrants risk going to polls to vote? The risk versus reward is insane. I mean, it's like literally jumping into an alligator pit because you want to take a minnow out, a minnow out. I mean, the chance of getting bit is very high. The chance of catching a minnow is very low. One vote. That one vote is not guaranteed to even get your candidate elected. And you're risking a full deportation and all of that. the risk versus reward is not even, it's insane that anybody would think that these folks are voting, but it's worked. It's worked. The school supervisor that was illegal had a gun card and voted for Harris. Look that up. I did a long video on that school supervisor in Des Moines, Iowa. Well, first of all, I don't see any evidence that he actually voted. He did have a gun. And from what I can tell, the gun he owned was legal. He had what do you call it, work visa to remain in America. And you're talking about the black guy. I cannot think of his name, but I did like a 20-minute video. I went and looked up his whole criminal history, listed all of that. He was a superintendent in Des Moines. And before in Des Moines, he was a superintendent in St. Louis. He was a superintendent in Erie, Pennsylvania. He was a superintendent in Oakland. I mean, he actually had all the credentials, and he was trying to get a green card to stay in America. They kept denying him, and they kept renewing his work visa. So he was constantly being allowed to stay and legally work in America, but they wouldn't let him get a green card. So he was getting all those jobs legitimately. He lied about the school he got his degree from, but he did have a doctorate, he did have a master's, and he did have a bachelor's. He started out as a regular school teacher, climbed up to be a principal in the Baltimore school district. I did a long video. Like I said, I followed this. His criminal history was, I think his last charge was back in the 90s. So by the time they caught up with him earlier this year or late last year, it was like 20, his crimes were like 27 years ago. So this guy was not anywhere near look, he didn't have a legal right to be here because under Trump, they suddenly started denying his work visa. He was 100% legal in this country until Trump got elected. Once Trump got elected, they denied his work visa extension, and he became an illegal immigrant. And when they came looking for him, he took off and ran from the cops, and so be it. But up to that point, that dude was here legally. He was actually here legally. And like I said, I went through his whole criminal history. He didn't do the crime he committed. He went hunting, and he had a firearm in his car that was visible from the outside. So they charged him with possession of a firearm under those, and I think they gave him $100 fine. He didn't do any jail time or anything. It was a $100 fine. That was it. The right made it sound like this guy was walking around looking like Rambo. He did not do much wrong. And the Des Moines School District, when they hired him, he had the actual resume and the actual work history and education to get that job. He just happened to lose his right to stay here under Trump because of Trump's strict immigration policies. Had that dude not had Trump not been elected, that guy would still be superintendent and he would still be here legally. It was just when Trump became president, a lot of folks that were getting work visas and stuff like Trump made it look. A lot of folks believe that President Trump is getting rid of illegals, and that's it. Trump has made a lot of legal immigrants illegal. There's a lot of people that were here 100% legally until Trump became president, changed the rules, and suddenly they're here illegally now. So it ain't that he's just getting rid of illegals. He's creating illegals from scratch. He is creating a bunch of illegals, and then they got to go. I mean, like the Somalis that are in Minnesota, he wants to make that population illegal. He wants to make them here. He's taking the fact that some of them were involved in fraud. Probably less than 1% of them are involved in that shit. And he wants to use that to demonize the whole population and kick them out. But he is making illegal immigrants out of legal folks. So the idea would just come here legally. You want nothing to worry about. That's bullshit. You will have something to worry about. If somebody got it in for you, they got it in for you. He called them garbage. He's not talking about just the ones that committed fraud that were in a Nick Shirley video. He thinks they're all garbage. So it doesn't matter. He thinks all of them are garbage. Let me know how I'm wrong, though. What did I say? Somebody says, Tim, buddy, you're wrong. Let me know in what manner. Who said that? Salty Colonel. Appreciate the input. Let me know. I'll read it. How can you make an illegal? How can you make an legal immigrant illegal? Easy. Here's to make a legal immigrant illegal. Let's say you're here trying to get a green card. You're going through the process of getting a green card. You don't get that overnight. You have to, I know because I had to get resident. When I got residency in Australia, I'll take myself as an example. I had to give them fingerprints from the city of Chicago, showing I had no criminal history, Cook County, state of Illinois, the FBI, and then I had to also give them my criminal history from Interpol to show I had no international warrants. After that, they had to give me a medical exam. They take x-rays and all of that. They want to know you're not bringing in diseases. I had to do all of that. Now, these things are different days. This all ain't happening at once. Court dates. You're going through different court dates. You're going kind of a stair-step process. Getting residency is something that takes time. It can take years depending on the country. Well, you ask, how can he go from making a legal immigrant to illegal? A person that is going through the process is coming here the legal way. Trump did a few things. First of all, he suddenly banned entry from all third world countries. So any third world person that's going through this process, boom, is canceled now. He suddenly canceled folks who had asylum cases. That's why you see people getting deported from court. Them are legal people. Them ain't illegal immigrants hanging around the fucking courthouse. Them are all legal residents getting deported. So you ask, well, how can he make legal people to illegal? You're watching it happen. You're literally watching it. You think an illegal immigrant is hanging out at a courthouse? Why would he be doing that? Same reason why he would be hanging out at a polling place for you folks to think that happens. But no, they're turning legal people into illegal. The same thing with the Haitian migrants. The same thing where all of a sudden, okay, you come to America, you don't want to be on the system, so you get an employer to sponsor you. There are parameters for what the employer has to show on paper that they're capable of doing so that you're not on the system. Okay, so this job pays this much, we'll take care of health care for this person, all of this so the person doesn't be on the dope. President Trump raised the parameters. So all of a sudden, you might have got called over here to work for Amazon or some company, and it was a $70,000, $80,000 a year job that gave you health care. So you would not be on the dough. You would not be on the U.S. taxpayers. You were here legally. Trump, well, the job has to pay at least $150,000. Just raise the parameters. So now all of these folks that were here legally doing those jobs, they got to go because their employer cannot sponsor them at this much higher rate. He made legal immigrants into illegal people. It's happened all over the place. They're just telling you to tug on your heartstrings. We're getting out illegals. We're getting out rapists and murderers. No, you're kicking out people who are legally here working every damn day. It's way beyond rapists and murderers. It's way beyond that. It's way beyond that. A lot of folks that are here 100% legal, job and all, just found out you got to go. They just changed the rules. You got to go. So, and they know, and I see in the comments, somebody said they have your last name. Yeah, they know exactly who you are. So yeah, all of a sudden you come home from work or you go to work and 4 or 5 guys are standing there in fucking masks talking about they need to talk to you. You already know what that's like. It's kind of like watching those black shadows on the movie Ghost. You ain't about to see this guy no more. This guy's gone. Yeah, they making illegals out of legals. We are all immigrants, came here from other lands and ended up here. Well, yeah, but some of us came here. You ever see somebody, you climb on the roof to safety and then you drag the ladder up with you so nobody else can climb up behind you. That's kind of what has happened. And that's happened a lot in the Hispanic population, where you've had people either themselves came here struggling as an illegal immigrant and was able to find a way to come here legally, or their grandma or somebody in their past has done it. And now they vote for a guy that is totally going to remove the way your grandmother was allowed to come here. Had he been president when your grandma came here, you would still be living in Honduras somewhere. So you're going to remove the opportunity that existed for you to be who you are today from the same person, somebody else doing it tomorrow. Take it how you will. There's a lot of Hispanics that knew what Trump is. There's Hispanics that still support Trump. Rubio is a good example. I mean, I believe his past is something like that. You know, your ancestors wouldn't be here if Trump was in office at the time. You wouldn't be here. You'd be hanging out in Cuba somewhere still. I mean, you got to make it make sense. I believe Rubio. I believe his can be traced that way. So it is what it is, though. Looking in the comments here, my friend just renewed his work permit. Yeah, it depends on what country you're from, though. And you just never know when Trump may say your particular country is now off limits. We will no longer renew work permits from your country. In fact, the ones that are in existence are now hereby denied. They can deny your work permit at any time. You hear them talking about stuff that people did back in the early 2000s or 90s. You know, they're denying citizenship now based on did this person lie on the application? I think they showed one guy. I think he lied about a DUI or something like that. And he's been a citizen since the 90s. So they're going and scrutinizing your applications, and they're looking to revoke citizens. And we covered this on a previous live where Trump wants, 300 citizenship revocations per month. So they hired a team of people, and their quota is to get rid of 300 citizens every month. We covered this. So being citizens are no longer safe. They're going to go through your application and see if they can find lies on it. A lot of corporations do this. I used to be a technician at AT&T, and they wanted to lay folks off, but we was a union shop. So it's harder to lay union people off. So you have to make up legitimate reasons. So what they started doing is going through everybody's application, and you started having people that had been working with the company for 10 or 15 years getting fired because you lied on your, well, you didn't go to this school, or your grade point average. I mean, they just found ways to scrutinize you. That's what they're doing. They're going through people's citizenship applications, no matter how old. If they find anything on there that you didn't disclose or you were dishonest about, use that as a reason to take away your citizenship. You lied on your application, no matter how minor it may be. Like, we've been an enemy with Iran since the late 70s. Maybe you were asked on your citizenship application in the 1980s, have you been to Iran ever? Knowing it was not a favorable nation to America, you didn't want to ruin your chances, so you said no. But you've been in America for 30 years now and have had no problem whatsoever. And all of a sudden now they don't want to do your citizenship application and bring it up. Back in 1984, you lied on here, so we're going to revoke your citizenship and we're shipping you back where you came from. That's what is happening. Making illegals out of people that are here legally. You had to assimilate. You could not come here and be a practicing Muslim. When was that? And by the way, that goes against the freedom of religion. What are you saying? If you come to America, you got to be a Christian? Huh? That wouldn't be good. That's all we can do is acknowledge the wrong that have been done and don't fucking repeat them. But people have a hard time with that. Well, because it's pretty clear in the eyes of a lot of folks, Brian, that we intend to repeat some of the wrongs. The argument is those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it. And those who are trying to deliberately erase history want to repeat it. So it depends on how you look at it. Assimilating common sense and make America great. Those are all euphemisms. So either realize that or you're. I'll tell you something, though. Americans that go to other countries don't assimilate. I mean, we bring McDonald's, and when I lived in Australia, I still did American shit. I don't know why you don't. If you go to a free country, assimilating is getting a job and taking care of yourself when you're in that country. You don't have to sit around, watching Little House on the Prairie. I mean, when I went to America, I still, was downloading and watching American TV and shit like that. I mean, I didn't turn into I didn't start hopping around like a fucking kangaroo. I mean, what do you mean you gotta assimilate? Your requirement when you come to America is to be a law-abiding citizen and take care of yourself. You don't have to be Christian or get rid of your own religion or stop speaking your own language. That ain't how it used to be. That to me, that sounds more like we hate where you came from type shit. Leave where you came from behind. We don't do that. When we go other places, there are plenty of American expats living in Costa Rica and places like that. You don't think that they still doing American shit? I had a United States flag on the bumper sticker of my car when I was driving around in Australia. It was a chick. I was using it for a chick magnet. I mean, a lot of them liked Americans, but nobody in Australia told me to take the flag off my car. I don't know why all of a sudden you come here and people don't want you to acknowledge your homeland at all. I had Thanksgiving company. Thanksgiving is not honored in Australia at all. We would throw a big dinner. People came over. We did that stuff. The Super Bowl, watched, I would take off from work on Monday because that's when the Super Bowl was played over there. Sunday is Monday in Australia. On Monday, I'm taking off from work to watch the game. I mean, I didn't have to assimilate. So I don't know why you got to do it here. It's a free country still, at least for now. Yeah, they trying to change that free country shit, though. Trying to turn us into some Middle Eastern authoritarianism with that. That sounds like something the Middle East would say. You don't have, you got to assimilate. Where they start doing that?